Jack, I think one of the biggest reasons why many people never achieve their dreams or express their real personalities is because they spend too much time worrying about other people's opinions. And instead of living freely and confidently, they keep changing themselves just to receive approval from people who are often too busy focusing on their own lives.
I completely agree with you, Mary, because I used to be the kind of person who overthought every single thing I said or did. And before making even a small decision, I would imagine how people might judge me, criticize me, or laugh at me. But after some time, I realized that no matter what you do in life, there will always be someone who dislikes your choices. So it is impossible to satisfy everyone.
Exactly, and what is really sad is that many talented people hide their abilities and dreams simply because they are afraid of negative comments, while confident people continue moving forward even when others doubt them, because they understand that success comes from believing in yourself instead of depending on validation from society.
That reminds me of a moment when I wanted to start posting videos online and sharing my ideas publicly. But I kept delaying it because I was scared that people from school or even relatives would make fun of me. And honestly, that fear stopped me for months until I finally understood that staying silent was hurting me more than criticism ever could.
I think social media also makes this problem much bigger, because people constantly compare themselves to others and become obsessed with looking perfect, acting perfect, and living perfect lives, even though most of what we see online is carefully edited and does not represent reality at all.
You are right, and the funny thing is that many people who criticize others are often insecure themselves. Because confident and successful people usually spend their time improving their own lives instead of judging everyone around them, which is why we should never allow negative opinions to control our happiness or our future.
Another important thing is understanding that making mistakes is completely normal, because people who fear judgment often avoid trying new things, and because of that fear, they miss opportunities that could completely change their lives and help them grow into stronger and wiser individuals.
Yes, and I learned that confidence is not about thinking you are perfect, but it is about accepting yourself, learning from your mistakes, and continuing your journey even when people disagree with you. Because if you keep waiting for everyone's approval, you will spend your entire life living according to other people's expectations instead of your own dreams.
I truly believe that happiness begins the moment you stop asking yourself, "What will people think?" and start asking yourself, "What kind of life do I really want to live?" Because that mindset gives you freedom, peace, and the courage to become your authentic self without fear.
Absolutely, Mary. And at the end of the day, people will always have opinions no matter what you do. So the best thing we can do is focus on improving ourselves, protecting our peace of mind, and living in a way that makes us proud instead of constantly seeking acceptance from others.
I also think that constantly worrying about people's opinions can destroy a person's self-confidence little by little, because when someone keeps listening to criticism all the time, they slowly begin doubting their appearance, their personality, their abilities, and even their dreams, which can prevent them from becoming the best version of themselves.
That is completely true. And something I noticed is that people who are afraid of judgment often spend more energy trying to avoid criticism than actually improving their lives. And this creates a situation where fear becomes stronger than ambition. Even though every successful person in history faced negative comments, rejection, and doubt before achieving greatness.
Another thing that many people forget is that opinions change all the time, because the same people who criticize you today for trying something different might admire you tomorrow when you become successful, which proves that basing your decisions on public opinion is extremely dangerous and unreliable.
Exactly, and I believe that one of the most powerful feelings in life is reaching a point where you no longer feel the need to explain yourself to everyone. Because true maturity comes when you understand that your peace of mind is more important than winning arguments or receiving approval from people who may never truly support you anyway.
Sometimes people stay trapped in toxic environments or unhealthy friendships simply because they are scared of being judged for walking away. But in reality, protecting your mental peace and surrounding yourself with positive and supportive people is one of the decisions anyone can make in life.
I agree with you, Mary, because once a person learns how to stop caring about unnecessary opinions, they begin living with more confidence, taking bigger opportunities, expressing themselves honestly, and enjoying life without the constant pressure of trying to impress everyone around them. And that freedom can completely transform a person's mindset and future.
I believe that one of the greatest forms of self-respect is having the courage to live according to your own values and goals, instead of constantly changing your personality just to fit into other people's expectations. Because pretending to be someone else may help you gain temporary acceptance, but it will never give you real happiness or inner peace.
That is very true, and I think many people waste years of their lives trying to look perfect in front of others while secretly feeling exhausted, stressed, and emotionally empty inside. Because living for people's approval creates endless pressure that never truly disappears no matter how hard you try to satisfy everyone around you.
Another important lesson is understanding that people will always talk no matter what choices you make. Because if you stay quiet, they may call you weak, and if you speak confidently, they may call you arrogant, which means that trying to escape judgment is impossible. So the decision is focusing on your own growth instead of becoming a prisoner of public opinion.
Exactly, and I personally think that confidence becomes stronger when someone starts accepting the fact that criticism is a normal part of life. Because once you stop fearing negative opinions, you become mentally stronger, emotionally calmer, and much more willing to take risks that can lead to success and personal growth.
I also admire people who continue following their dreams even when nobody believes in them at the beginning, because those individuals understand that success often requires patience, resilience, and the ability to ignore discouraging voices that try to make them doubt themselves or abandon their ambitions too early.
Absolutely, and at the end of the day, life becomes much more peaceful when you realize that your happiness should never depend on strangers' opinions. Because people's thoughts about you can change within seconds, but the relationship you have with yourself is something that will stay with you forever.
I think one of the most dangerous habits a person can develop is constantly comparing their life to other people's lives. Because comparison creates unnecessary sadness and makes people forget their own progress, talents, and achievements, especially when they only see the perfect side that others choose to show in public while hiding their struggles and failures behind the scenes.
That is absolutely true, and I believe that people become much happier when they stop competing with everyone around them and start focusing on becoming a better version of themselves every single day. Because real success is not about proving your worth to others, but about building a life that genuinely makes you feel proud, peaceful, and fulfilled.
Another thing I noticed is that fear of judgment often prevents people from expressing their real thoughts, emotions, and creativity, which is very unfortunate because the world would be full of more talented artists, writers, speakers, and entrepreneurs if people were not so afraid of criticism and rejection from society.
Exactly, and what helped me personally was understanding that most people are too busy worrying about their own problems and insecurities to spend all their time thinking about someone else, which means that many of the fears we create in our minds are much bigger than reality itself.
I also believe that self-confidence grows when people learn how to appreciate themselves without depending on compliments or validation from others. Because if your happiness only comes from external approval, then your confidence can easily disappear the moment someone criticizes you or disagrees with your choices.
I completely agree, Mary, and I think true freedom begins when someone stops being afraid of disappointing others and starts being afraid of disappointing themselves. Because living a fake life to please society may look comfortable from the outside, but deep inside it often creates regret, frustration, and a feeling of emptiness that becomes heavier over time.
I truly believe that one of the most powerful changes a person can make in their life is learning how to separate their self-worth from people's opinions. Because the moment you allow society, classmates, relatives, or strangers to decide how valuable you are, you slowly lose control over your happiness, your confidence, and even your identity. Which is why emotionally strong people learn how to listen to advice without allowing criticism to destroy their inner peace or their belief in themselves.
That is incredibly true, Mary, and I think many young people suffer silently because they are constantly trying to meet unrealistic expectations created by society, social media, and even the people around them. And after spending so much time pretending to be perfect, they eventually become mentally exhausted because deep inside they know they are living for acceptance instead of living for their own goals, passions, and personal happiness.
Another thing that people rarely understand is that fear of judgment can quietly steal opportunities from someone's life without them even noticing it. Because many people avoid speaking in public, starting businesses, sharing their talents, traveling alone, or expressing their real opinions simply because they are scared of embarrassing themselves or being criticized. And unfortunately, this fear can become a prison that limits their growth for many years.
Exactly, and what is even more interesting is that many successful people were once criticized, rejected, underestimated, or laughed at before they became respected and admired, which proves that public opinion changes very quickly and should never be trusted as a measure of someone's future potential, because people often doubt things they do not understand until success finally makes them change their perspective completely.
I also think that constantly trying to impress everyone is emotionally draining. Because no matter how kind, talented, intelligent, or you are, there will always be people who misunderstand you, dislike you, or criticize your choices. And once you accept this reality, life becomes much more peaceful because you stop wasting energy chasing impossible approval and start focusing on your own growth and happiness instead.
I completely agree with you, and I believe true confidence appears when someone becomes comfortable with being misunderstood sometimes. Because mature people understand that not everybody will understand their journey, their dreams, or their decisions. And instead of explaining themselves to every single person, they choose to stay focused on their priorities, protect their mental peace, and continue moving forward with determination and self-respect.
Another important lesson is realizing that mistakes should never be a source of shame, because every human being makes errors while learning and growing. But people who fear judgment often become terrified of failure, which prevents them from taking risks or trying new experiences. Even though failure itself is often the greatest teacher, and one of the biggest reasons successful people become wiser and stronger over time.
Absolutely, Mary. And I think one of the saddest things in life is reaching the end of your journey and realizing that you spent more time trying to satisfy other people than trying to satisfy yourself. Because at the end of the day, people will continue living their own lives while you are left carrying the consequences of the choices you made. Which is why everyone should have the courage to live authentically, follow their passions fearlessly, and never allow unnecessary opinions to control their future.
I honestly think that one of the biggest tragedies in modern society is seeing intelligent, talented, and creative people slowly lose their personalities because they spend years trying to become versions of themselves that are more acceptable to others. And instead of asking themselves what truly makes them happy, they become completely obsessed with avoiding criticism, gaining approval, and maintaining a perfect image in front of society, even if that image does not represent who they really are deep inside.
That is extremely true, Mary. And I believe this problem becomes even more dangerous when people begin measuring their value according to how much attention, praise, or validation they receive from others. Because depending emotionally on public approval creates a very unstable form of confidence that can disappear instantly after one negative comment, one failure, or one moment of rejection.
Another thing that many people fail to realize is that society often criticizes individuals who choose to be different, ambitious, or independent minded, because people usually feel comfortable around those who follow the crowd, while those who think differently or pursue unusual dreams are often judged unfairly at the beginning. Even though history repeatedly proves that many successful innovators, artists, entrepreneurs, and leaders were once doubted, mocked.
Exactly, and I personally think that constantly trying to avoid judgment is one of the fastest ways to destroy personal growth. Because growth requires taking risks, making mistakes, feeling uncomfortable sometimes, and accepting the possibility that not everyone will support your decisions.
I also believe that people who constantly judge others are often struggling with their own insecurities, frustrations, or unhappiness. Because truly confident individuals usually focus more on improving themselves than criticizing the lives, appearances, or choices of other people. Which is why allowing negative opinions to control your emotions is extremely unfair to yourself, especially when those opinions may come from individuals who are not even satisfied with their own lives in the first place.
That is such an important point, Mary. And something I learned over time is that peace of mind becomes much easier to achieve when you stop feeling responsible for everyone's expectations and reactions. Because trying to please every single person around you is emotionally exhausting and completely impossible. And the moment you finally accept that not everybody will understand your personality, your dreams, or your decisions.
Another powerful lesson is understanding that confidence does not mean becoming arrogant or ignoring advice completely, but rather having enough self-belief to continue moving forward even when people doubt you, criticize you, or fail to understand your journey. Because confident people are not fearless individuals who never face negativity, but individuals who refuse to let negativity stop them from growing, learning, and pursuing the life they genuinely want to live.
Absolutely, and I think one of the most liberating feelings in life is reaching a stage where you no longer feel the need to constantly explain yourself, defend every decision, or seek approval before taking action. Because maturity teaches people that their happiness, mental health, and future are far more important than temporary opinions that may change within days, weeks, or even minutes depending on people's moods and perspectives.
I truly believe that life becomes far more meaningful when people stop living as performers trying to entertain society and start living authentically according to their values, passions, and dreams. Because even though choosing authenticity may sometimes bring criticism or misunderstanding, it also brings inner peace, emotional freedom, stronger self respect, and the satisfaction of knowing that you are building a life that genuinely belongs to you rather than a life designed only to impress others.
I completely agree with you, Mary, because at the end of the day, people's opinions are temporary and constantly changing. But the consequences of ignoring your dreams, hiding your personality, and living in fear can remain with you forever. Which is why every person should learn how to trust themselves more, value their mental peace, and stop giving unnecessary opinions the power to control their confidence, decisions, and future happiness.
I have come to realize that one of the greatest achievements a person can reach in life is developing the courage to remain authentic in a world where so many people feel pressured to hide their true personalities, thoughts, and dreams just to avoid criticism or gain temporary acceptance. Because living honestly and confidently requires emotional strength, self awareness, and the ability to accept that not everybody will understand or support the path you choose for yourself.
And I truly believe that the moment someone stops allowing fear, judgment, and negative opinions to control their decisions is the exact moment they begin experiencing real freedom. Because instead of wasting their energy trying to satisfy society's endless expectations, they finally focus on building a meaningful life, improving themselves every day, protecting their peace of mind, and chasing the goals and passions that genuinely make them feel alive and fulfilled.